one. Vision Week, a week-long web summit, is an opportunity to create a shared vision for New Zealand. So New Zealanders are invited to share their thoughts and listen to various experts express what they think the future of the country should be. Joining us now is one such expert, former Chief Science Officer and Advisor to Prime Ministers, Sir Peter Gluckman. Sir Peter, g'day, good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to see you.
Thanks a lot.
Have we identified sufficiently the problem?
I think we keep on putting some problems into the too hard basket, and I think at some point we have to take them out of the basket and deal with them. Issues of transgenerational disadvantage and disempowerment, issues of land use, issues of water rights. There are a set of basket of issues that will need to be resolved. But I think the biggest issue is we need to get a collective vision of the future for the reality of how a little country at the end of the world, in geographical terms, can project to the world and be economically robust at the same time as being environmentally, socially and culturally robust.
So what you're talking about is huge. That answer there says to me that there are a huge number of historical things in our country that we have that generations have inherited through no fault of their own, but that's because of the law, and that's what was done, say, 70, 80, 90 years ago, or those things were put under that sort of legislation. Is that what you're saying? I'm
saying that we're a she'll-be-right country, so we can get around this. We don't have to address these hard issues. And New Zealand's not been very good at times at addressing some hard issues. But I think the bigger issue for us is now getting a consensus, not on a partisan basis, but on a national basis, a true conversation of where we want to be 20, 30 years from now. We're going to have to be realistic that tourism will be changed, that food production is important, but it can only go so far without having major environmental issues. Therefore, how do we become a robust economically country? And that's going to require investment in areas we don't invest in.
Can we produce more food? I mean, like at the moment, you would say around farming and so forth that we're pretty much at capacity, or is that incorrect?
No, I don't think it's a sunset industry at all. I think it's got a long way to go. But I think we're going to have discussions about what technologies can help us develop further. We've got to be aware of the consumer preferences around the world are changing, because the climate change will milk and meat in the way we produce them now be ways that consumers around the world want 10 or 20 years from now. I doubt it.
Are we positioned well, though? I mean, are we positioned internationally? Is our reputation intact?
Our reputation's fantastic for many reasons, and it's deservedly very high. But we are not positioned well in terms of our investment in R&D, in terms of our investment in education.
It's always been poor, hasn't it?
It's bizarre to me that the one sector which is struggling particularly at the moment, which government has not helped, which is the tertiary sector, is the sector that's so critical for our future.
Did you at times want to grab the Prime Minister of the day that you were serving by the collar and say, R&D, research and development, it's called science, it's called the future, give us some more money, pal?
It's not just money, it's a commitment and the belief that countries like Singapore, Israel, Denmark, Finland have, that for small countries, knowledge is the most important asset they can have. And how you exploit that knowledge is critical. And we're not doing that well in this country. We didn't do it under the 3 Prime Ministers we've served well. And it's a long historical thing of our culture, she'll be right, we'll muddle through, rather than having a really strategic view of what could make this country quite significant as a little country.
So if there's one thing, if you had the power for the day, let's just say that one of the Prime Ministers that you were serving fell over for the day and they threw you their swipe card and you were in charge of the office for the day, what's the one thing you would change in New Zealand to get this country going faster, better and more efficient?
Doing what we're doing today, promote a national conversation. This is not a matter of some elite academics or business leaders coming up with a recipe for the future. That won't work. What is needed here is a collective conversation, which is needed over the next 1 or 2 years to recognise that we have to move with this reset that's happening around the world as a result of COVID into a consensual way ahead for this country.
But with all respect, sir, I covered the knowledge wave conference, Steve Mahari and Helen Clark.
I was there.
Do you remember those?
I was there.
And what was that? That was a national conversation about the knowledge economy.
No, it was an acute conversation. It wasn't a. It was. Conversations take time. It's not a matter of somebody getting up there and preaching from the altar.
Is that what it was? Wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
It was an acute episode rather than what's going on here. I mean,
did nothing happen as a result of that?
I think things have happened. I think we've seen the beginning of entrepreneurial business in New Zealand. We've seen, look how at the TIN 100 or 200, the number of companies, Rocket Lab, and other things happen here that I think are a result of many businessmen, many young people realising that from New Zealand we can do great things.
We need 100 Rocket Labs.
Yes, we do. We do need 100 Rocket Labs, and that needs investing in young people, investing in education, investing in all our young people. And I think that we have not thought enough about technical education. We've not thought enough about the broader range of skills that are needed for this country to work.
One of the interesting things I read about you, this was back in March, so before COVID-19 really hit here, and you said social, economic, technological and environmental transformations are happening around us at a scale and speed which is unique in human history. How has that changed because of COVID-19, and is the slowdown a good thing?
COVID has changed things in a different way, I think, Amanda, and that is the level of impact on the global society is as big as the Great Depressions, the world wars. And after each of those has been quite a big reset in how economies and societies operate. I think while we've been lucky here and we're sort of in a honeymoon period now as we come out of lockdown with very few people suffering through COVID in the health sense, there's a reset going on and thinking all around the world. What does this mean in terms of the next 20 years for the world in economic terms, cultural terms, technological terms, and so forth? That same discussion has to happen in New Zealand. And we started that discussion with a series of papers called The Future Is Now, which we'll get the next paper out on Friday, which is about mental health and mental well-being, and the one next week on food. And the point about the future is now is to say conversations and evolution that might have happened over 1, 2 or 3 decades in the absence of COVID have been accelerated. This is a big enough inflection point to force a concatenation of the discussion on these issues. Now, what we can do is fall back into our usual way, or we can put a Band-Aid here and a Band-Aid here, or we can be what New Zealand has not generally been particularly good at, which is having a national conversation of where we want to be. And then, because if you don't know where you're going, any road is okay. And I think that's the point we've got to get beyond.
It's been lovely having you on the program today. One final question. How do you can do all these things and change all sorts of things with ideas and money and everything. How do you change mindsets? Because New Zealanders are hunkering down a bit and not spending and changing their views of what they used to do. They've changed. How do you change them back?
Or do we want to change them back? Do we want to change them forward? And I think that's a big difference. Changing them forward is about engaging them, just as you said before. It's about coaching them. It's about understanding them and bringing them into the conversation, not telling them what to do.
It's opportunity. They're at the intersection. Let's take the right way off the path. Good stuff. Nice to see you. All the very best.
All the best.
Such a massive question. We could go on for hours about this. Former Chief Science Advisor Sir Peter Gluckman. Good.